Hello and welcome to this tutorial, and in this tutorial we are going to learn something about the global variables and the local variables. So a global variable is nothing but a variable which has global acceptance. That is, if you declare a variable as global, so that variable can be used in any function, inside the function and outside the function. Now if we have a variable which is a local variable which is locally declared inside a function, then the scope of that variable is limited to that particular function. So a local variable can only be used within the function in which you have declared it. Now in order to get a better understanding of what global and local variables are, we simply go ahead and create a function. So we type function and let's say we name the function as function1, and once the function is created, we go ahead and create a variable. So initially we are going to create a global variable. So a global variable is declared outside the function over here, and the local variable is declared inside this function over here. So let's go ahead and create a global variable. So let's say we type var, and let's name this global variable as g1. So G stands for global, and let's assign it some value. Let's say it is 10. Now once we have this variable with us, we could simply use this variable inside this function. In order to do that, let's say we have to print out the value of g1, which is the global variable. So we use document.write, and inside it we print the value of g1. So basically this function right here is going to take the value of g1, which is 10, and it is going to print out the value of g1. Now once this is done, we simply use the function call. So in order to call the function, we type the function name, which is function1, and give a parenthesis and a semicolon after it. Now if we save the code now and execute it, we'll see that 10 pops up into the web browser, and that is because this function call right here is going to go to this function and it is going to execute the code inside it. Now as g1 is a global variable, it could easily access the value of 10 and it could pass on to this function. So g1 being a global variable can be used anywhere in a function. Now even if we go ahead and create a second function, so let's say we create a second function and name this as function2, and let's say we also want to use the value of g1 into this function. So we simply copy this code over here and let's say we print it out over here. Now the value of g1 can also be accessed in this function 2. So if we want to call function 2, so we type function 2 and then we call it. Now if we save the code now and execute it, you'll get a 10 and a 10. So that is basically because this value of g1 is accessible to both functions, that is, it is accessible to function 1 as well as it is accessible to function 2. Now let's go ahead and talk about local variables. So in case of a local variable, the scope of a variable is limited within the function. So let's go ahead and create a local variable inside function 1. So let's say we name the variable as L1. So let's type var L1 and let's say we equate it to 20. Now I'll format this code a bit here. So as var L1 is a local variable and it is assigned a value 20, and let's say we want to use this value of L1 into the function 2. So this being a local variable cannot be accessed in function 2. In order to check whether if it is accessible from function 2, we go ahead and print out document.write, and let's try to print the value of L1 inside function 2. So in the parentheses right here, we print the value of L1. And now if we save the code, we are not going to get the value of L1, and that is because L1 is a local variable, and we call it as local variable because it is created inside the function locally. And this function right here is called as a global variable because it is created outside the function. So now if we want to access this variable L1, it can only be accessed within this function. Now in order to check if L1 could be accessed in the function 1, we simply go ahead and type document.write and we simply print out the value of L1. So as L1 is a local variable here, it could be easily accessed from this function 1. So let's save the code and execute it. So you could see that the value of 20 popped up, and that is because this function right here gets called, which could easily access the value of L1. Now in order to avoid confusion, I'm going to remove this function call for function 2, and simply the function 1 gets called, so that you could check when function 1 gets called, the first line of code right over here gets executed, which prints the value of 10. Then the second line of code gets executed, which gives the value of L1. So you get the value of 20 over here. So that's what a global and local variables are. And always remember that a global variable is always declared outside the function, and it could be used outside the function, inside the function, and any other place. Whereas in case of a local variable, it can only be used within the same function in which it is declared. So guys, that's it for this tutorial, and I'll see you guys in the next tutorial. Thank you.